Welcome back to the show, everybody. My name is Victor Nieves. This is the Victor Nieves Show. We have a bit of a special program for you today. Those of you who have tuned in for a long time, you know, historically, I'm really bad about having guests on. I know it's a personal fault of mine, but today we're joined by a legitimate good friend of mine. There's not that many people in the conservative industry who I would genuinely endorse. Gentry, brother, you're one of my favorite people who do content. You're a great guy. You're one of the most connected, involved. If anybody knows the conservative space today, I would say that it's probably you. You're a husband, father, and a good friend, content creator. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is
Well,
going to
there's
be
a
great.
lot. Super great. There's a lot that I want to talk about with you. I mean, you and I could just go back and forth probably for hours. We won't do that today, but we could go back and forth on so many of these topics, whether it's the state of conservative media, whether it's some of this conspiracy stuff that we see happening inside of the right. And I'll just give a very brief synopsis of the reason that I wanted to talk to you today. And I talked about this in a previous episode of the show, but I think we're being censored. And it used to be like in the COVID era, we would be censored by the left. We had Joe Biden. He was trying to create like a ministry of truth, basically. We had big tech platforms that were bearing down on us. And that's kind of the censorship that we came to expect. Now, the state of conservatism and conservative media is almost creating its own form of censorship. I would say that we're not in a healthy place. I don't think that that's like a hot take for me to say, that the Republican Party at large is maybe not in the greatest place. There's a lot of reasons for that. But I want to start off with some of this conspiracy stuff because you're a very reasonable guy. And it seems like, uh, again, I say this all the time, I am a conspiracy guy. So for anybody who thinks I'm just like a bootlicker, trust the official narrative, I have a track record going back a very long time. I've taken arrows for many years for not trusting the official narrative, but we still have to adhere to the truth. And so it's a little bit of a long-winded build-up here, but the conspiracy stuff, this is my opinion, has completely run rampant. And it's almost like the conservative movement, especially online, maybe there's an important caveat there that this is online. The conservative online movement is kind of becoming unrecognizable. What's your take on it?
I think a lot of the conspiracy stuff is valid. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the conspiracies that we looked at in 2020, COVID, lab leak, vaccines, etc., like they turned out to be true, right? Maybe some of them we couldn't prove in a court of law, but like a lot of them did. And I think that that gives way to people to distrust institutions, to not trust the official narrative, um, and to look into other, conspiracy theories. I will say, early 2020 and 2021, I was looking into a lot of these conspiracies, like QAnon. Like I was trying to follow all the Q drops, and like some of it seemed great and some of it didn't, and I was like, trust the plan, kind of, and then nothing happened, and I was like, okay, well, maybe some of it was true, but not all of it was true, so we're just gonna throw that one out. It is always interesting to like see people still believing in the dash or the whole thing from the corporation to the Constitution, right? Because there's some conspiracies on that. So like, but just because COVID and the vaccine and the lab leak and all this kind of stuff turned out to be true doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are true. And I feel like there's a level of distrust in our institutions that, to be honest, is valid, but it's not healthy for the future of America because we should want to trust the FDA and the CIA and the FBI because, in theory, they were created to help us, right? Obviously, government isn't. I'm not like saying go, bootlick government because I actually hate government with a passion, but for if we don't have like some semblance of trust in some sort of institutions that are integral to America, like what's the logical conclusion of that? Are you just not going to stop for traffic, like for
Yeah.
traffic stops? Or are you going to,
Everything breaks down.
everything breaks down because you're just going to like be a sovereign citizen and try to live that conspiracy theory and talk about straw man, and then you don't have to license, get a driver's license or register your car or like all these conspiracy theories. Like it's just maybe not true. And like it breaks down society because there's a kind of a like social contract that we all are supposed to have with each other. And if you don't believe in anything, because that's a logical conclusion. Like if you keep questioning things, you're going to question everything, and then you believe in nothing. And we legitimately are headed towards that. And then you're not going to respect the laws, your fellow human, all this kind of stuff. And then the worst part about this whole thing is that people will take these conspiracies instead of doing it how I do, where I learn about it all. Right? I've watched a ton of Candace's episodes. I think she's nuts, but I've learned about like everything that she's claimed. But I haven't taken it on as my own and made that my identity. And now I'm finding out that people are like holding on to these words that podcasters are saying, or these conspiracies, and it's part of their identity. And now they think anybody who has a different thought, they sold their soul or they're paid off or whatever, and they just can't comprehend that someone else has a different opinion. And it's not that you're necessarily more enlightened. And even if you have a conspiracy theory that is true, like don't do that. That's weird. Like you don't want to be a weirdo saying, oh, like did you know, and then shame people for not knowing. Like I feel like one of the big things that we could use to turn the ship is have everyone read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, because some
The
things,
greatest book of all time.
well,
My
the
outside
Bible
of the
is
Bible,
the
yeah, outside of
Bible
the
is.
Bible, that is my number one recommended read. Anytime somebody asks me, and this is in politics, like in life. Okay, so what you're saying, I completely agree with. And I think back in like 2019, 2020, the COVID era, we have the election fraud, we have all of this stuff that's going on. I used to tell people, I'm a conspiracy guy. Like I grew up on Alex Jones, and I'm not kidding. And I know all of the Alex Jones conspiracies. I used to listen to him every day at 11 a.m. when Alex Jones would come on when I was in high school. I would sit out in my car eating lunch, listening to Alex Jones. And I was like, yeah, this guy's on point. So that's who I am. That's who I come from. I come from the Alex Jones people. Not to say I, just swallowed everything that he ever said, but I used to tell people back in the day when people were first getting red pilled, when they were first waking up, because COVID snapped a lot of people out of a slumber. And that was a really good thing. That was super important. People got involved. People, suddenly realized kind of the depth of the corruption, just how bad things were. And so I used to tell people conspiracies, questioning everything. This is actually good stuff. I think that there is a healthy level of that a free people have to have, because if we just completely stop paying attention or asking questions, we're cooked. We're just going to accept whatever the government says. But I would tell people you can taste the sauce, you can dabble in the sauce, but you don't get lost in the sauce. And so what we're seeing now is we have people that are legitimately lost in the sauce. And so they've understandably lost all faith in our institutions, like you were talking about. They don't believe the FDA, and I never will either for the rest of my life. I'm not going to trust, the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not going to trust the vaccine. I've been burned on that. I just no longer believe them, and I wasn't like that prior to 2020 and the COVID and the vaccines and all that stuff. So I get it. I understand where they're coming from, but the pendulum, as human beings, Gentry, we see this all the time. The pendulum does not stop where it should. Something happens, like we realize that we've been lied to, and the pendulum starts swinging. And at some point, it hits the healthy spot, but it doesn't ever stop there. And so now we've gone beyond that. And it's just anybody who doesn't agree with me is in on it. Anybody who, even if, like, and this is what's crazy to me, not to be insulting to these people because I love them. Like all of the conspiracy people, I genuinely love them. They may not love me anymore, but I actually want the best for them. It, it's crazy to me because we have some I would call them like Johnny come lately. We have people that weren't involved 4 or 5 years ago, didn't know the first thing about the political process 4 or 5 years ago. They have no idea who the players are who have been doing good work. I'm not saying the bad people in the swamp. I'm saying the people who have been doing good work, actually moving the ball down the field, right? The Johnny come latelys who just woke up, they just got their head out of the sand, are now attacking the people who have been doing it for 40 years. So I come from Missouri. This airs on radio in Missouri. There's a great example of this. A personal friend of mine, a woman named Bev Allen. Gentry, you have no reason to know who she is, but she's a huge player in Missouri politics and a rock star. She has done so much good for the conservative cause in Missouri. People who just got red pilled 3 years ago are attacking Bev Allen and calling her a rhino sellout. And it's like, no, no, no. She's the one who paved the way for you to open your eyes. Like, and that's what frustrates me is when we see people who just woke up yesterday, and I understand question everything. I totally, no one's off limits. I'm not off limits. You're not off limits. The example I gave, Bev Allen, she's not off limits. Like, you can ask these intelligent questions. They have to maintain the intelligent part, though. Like, if we get into the world of it's no longer an intelligent question, you get to ask it, but let's think things through. So, Gentry, I don't know, man. I mean, we see this stuff. What do you think we need to do? Because if, like you said, if we lose trust in everything, eventually we have serious problems. What do we need to do without becoming bootlickers to get back to that healthy spot? The pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction. How do we get back to a healthy spot?
I think it's not. It's more about having better answers than having the right questions, if that makes sense. And so one of the things that really bums me out about the Candace crowd is that they're just asking questions, right? And they're not even accepting the answers to some of those questions. They are flat out refusing. They're actually not open-minded. They're flat out refusing to hear the other side. And I can almost guarantee that the woke right is not even like a far off claim to make about these people because that's what the left does.
So pause. What do you mean when you say woke right? Because like I hear people say that all the time. They're like, oh, it's the I don't know who the first one I saw say it. Maybe it was like Mark Levin was one of the first people I heard saying like it's the woke right and they're
Well,
fascists.
Mark
And,
Levin sucks. He sucks so bad. I'm not a fan of him. He is way too pro-Israel, and I'm not. Yeah, I just.
And you're not an anti-Israel guy. So okay, I want to throw
I'm
this in
not.
there. You and I have talked about this before. The reasonable position has been made almost extinct online right now. And what I mean by that is in the same 24-hour period of time, I have been called an anti-Semite because I like JD Vance and I don't support the war in Iran. That's just my personal position. I like JD Vance. I get called an anti-Semite for it. I think Candace is crazy and I get called a good goy and I get called like some sort of an Israeli shill or, like accused of taking $7,000 from Benjamin Netanyahu. And it's like, these things cannot both be true at the same time. Yet I'm being from the most ravenous, I would consider it like the Mark Levin side of the pro-Israel group, where nothing is ever good enough unless we're nuking Iran. I get called an anti-Semite by them. And it's like, well, that couldn't be further from the truth. Gentry, you're not an anti-Semite. Like, clearly not. I mean, anybody who will take the time to listen to what either of us have to say, we're not Israeli shills and we're not anti-Semites. We're normal people who like our country. So have you seen that same thing? Like, do you get the same, both sides are attacking normal position?
I have gotten more good goys and 7K comments than being called an anti-Semite, but I have come out in support of JD Vance, and I did get a little bit of that, a little bit of pushback, but less. And the reason why is because I have conversations with these other creators, online, offline. I'm like, dude, I am pro America and I really don't care about Israel. Like the Nick Fuentes and the Groypers made us care about Israel because they were so rabid and that's all they wanted to talk about. And it's like, okay, well, like, what do I actually think about Israel? And I've decided I don't really care. And I know it's not like maybe like on the pro-Israel side, they're like, oh, you have to care because of this. And I'm like, well, do I? Do I have to care? Because there's some debates that says like the modern Israel is the Israel that we're supposed to bless, and some debates is like no, it's actually the church. And
it's a theological question.
It's a theological question, and it's not a political question at all.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too, like when it comes to theological questions, because I have people ask me like, Victor, what's your stance on Israel all the time? Basically, my answer is, I don't really know. My answer, what do you think about Israel? What do you think, like some people will say like replacement theology. Some people will say covenant theology. Some people will be dispensationalists. I am not a scholarly theologian. I'm not. That is a theological question. Is the modern nation of Israel the same Israel that's talked about in the Old Testament? Is it when God says to Abraham, those who bless you, I will bless. Those who curse you will be cursed. Is it the same? That's a theological question. Here's what concerns me, to play a little bit I get called all of the different things. What's annoying to me, and I actually think what started this, is even in a theological question, Christians who engage in that debate in good faith were called anti Semites. And that's a problem. That really is a problem. So if you have a Christian who comes forward and says, hey, listen, when I read Galatians, when I read, let's go through the New Testament and we see these different examples that maybe don't line up with the predominant Protestant view in America, because that is largely a Protestant American view, the way that we view the current nation state of Israel. Um, that's not so popular in the rest of the world. That's not so popular in church history. It's not so. This is kind of a more modern understanding, which makes sense because it's a modern nation. But anyway, uh, when we have this theological question, it's oftentimes not that iron is sharpening iron. We're not greeted as brothers and sisters in Christ who might understand a certain piece of non-salvific theology a little bit different. You're immediately told you're a ravenous Jew-hating anti-Semite. You hate Israel, you hate God's chosen people. And it's like, whoa, 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 can we pump the brakes a little bit here? I understand that there are people who meet that description. I ain't one of them. Like, let's not paint with such a broad brush.
So you hit it spot on, because people keep moving second and third tier theology into first order, right? And like, you can argue what tier it's in. You cannot put it in the first order theology where it's like it's your salvation hinges on it, because Jesus doesn't say like, repent, confess, and follow me and have a correct opinion on Israel. He didn't say that at all. And so I think that we're majoring on minors, and we're trying to make mountains out of molehills on these kinds of topics. And it's frustrating, because I really don't care, and there is influence from Israel in politics. I don't think it's as much as these people say it is, because some people are like, oh, the whole U.S. government is Jewish, and I'm like, what's I mean, okay. Like, are you saying everyone is bad? Because when you paint with a big brush like that, you could do that for any sector. There are teachers that sleep with their students. There are contractors that screw you. There are, financial advisors that run Ponzi schemes. There are, are they all bad? I'm sure some of them are, right? Like, why does that Jew own MindGeek? Why does that rabbi own MindGeek? That's a legitimate question, but it's not in a.
What's MindGeek?
It's the company that owns Pornhub and all the big porn aggregators. They're out of Toronto, but that's not an indictment on the state of Israel, because that guy's Canadian. So, but I think the conspiracy mind needs to chill a little bit, because the answers that these people are getting are not good enough, because it doesn't fit their narrative. And so they're not asking good faith questions or intelligent questions. They're asking questions in a way to further the narrative, or they're just noticing. And it's fine to notice. I mean, I notice all the time. I notice who are the bad drivers in Charlotte and in Seattle. By the way, it's two different groups of people. But I feel like if you are going to be this person that says, Christ is king, you should actually have Christ be king and Lord of your life, because you're not really showing the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about the people? So, like, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jeremy Boring. He did a podcast not too long ago, though, where they were talking about the phrase "Christ is King," and they likened it to when a Muslim screams "Allahu Akbar," which the technical Allahu Akbar just means God is good or something. God is great, I think, in Arabic. And so Jeremy was saying, and some of the guests were saying, that it's kind of like when somebody says Christ is king, it's kind of similar to the whole Allahu Akbar, where technically on paper, like, yes, obviously God is great. Christ is king. I think that that's a place where it's easy to paint with a broad brush, though, because I will say Christ is king. It's about how you're saying it. And I do think, to extend a bit of an olive branch here, I do think there are people who say it in a very wicked way. And that's a bad place to be. I would go so far as to say that that's definitely blaspheming God's name. That's a wicked, wicked thing to do. I'm curious. We're coming up for the radio audience. We're coming up on a break here. When we get back to it, though, Gentry, I'm curious your thoughts on the whole Christ is King controversy. So we'll be right back. All right, Gentry. So what is your take on the Christ is King stuff?
So words and phrases change meaning over time, and that could be a good thing and a bad thing. For example, the word bland actually means smooth and soothing. It doesn't mean boring. And so it sucks that this is happening with the phrase Christ is King, but I bet you if you look at Twitter trends, it like Christ is King has been posted by these people who are also praising Hitler, or in that camp, in the Groiper camp. So I think potentially it has changed its meaning. It's more of a dog whistle now than anything, and it sucks to say because Jesus Christ is King. He is Lord of my life, and like God controls everything. But that's what I would say. I wouldn't put like too much emphasis into that. I don't think about that a lot, except for just with how I think about words changing meaning over time.
So I had in my bio, I've had Jesus is King for like ever since I started doing any content creation. This goes back. My favorite boxer is Manny Pacquiao, and Manny Pacquiao would go to the ring every single fight he ever had. He would go to the ring and he would wear a shirt that said "Jesus is King." I thought that's amazing. I love that. I got to get me some shirts like that. So actually, I even had my sister make me one. Like she had the press, and she made a T-shirt that said "Jesus is King." So I've just had it in my bio this entire time. Predates any of this like controversy about the phraseology. And I had one of these guys in the Groiper or Groiper adjacent crowd. And for anybody who doesn't know it, those are followers of Nick Fuentes. They're very far right. And those are the ones who are most often bludgeoning people with the phrase, Christ is King. And I had somebody try and like call me out on this. And they were like, Victor, why does your bio say Jesus is King and not Christ is King? Like as though this was, I had failed some test. Like, and I'm like, no, hang on. This goes way back. So a lot of what we're seeing is just stupid, pedantic. I consider it like tabloid stuff. Like this is tabloid crap. And we can go back and forth. And some of it is important. Like what we talked about the first segment of the show, it's some of this stuff, like the conspiracy stuff, is important. There's nothing wrong with noticing trends. There's nothing wrong with observing the world around you. We have to have our eyes open. But we also have to be willing to filter what's important and what's not. And so there are so many people right now who are consuming conservative media, and I use conservative loosely there, but like right-wing media, who have become hyper focused on the wrong target. Like we have the midterms coming up. When's the last time you had anybody like nobody cares? That's the sad part is when I talk to Republicans, conservatives, what are the issues that they're focusing on? Nobody freaking cares about the midterms. Nobody cares about who's going to control the House and the Senate. Some people do, like the good, the people kind of behind the scenes do, but the public facing, just average people online, they're not talking about the issues that matter. They're talking about secondary, tertiary issues. Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? It's like, well, how about if we lose power, they're going to put all of us on the chopping block and cut our heads off, potentially literally. So maybe we focus on that.
No, I mean, you're spot on. I don't know if people have noticed the trend recently, but Democratic Socialists, whose platform closely aligns with the communist playbook, Marxism, they have been winning primaries. And if we don't stop them, they are going to uh, dominate in midterms. And it's going to open the door for a lot more socialists to actually get elected and take power. Um, you also said one thing that was interesting is that it's kind of turned into this like tabloid conservative movement. And you're 1,000% right. I mean, Candace has really taken it to the max with the podcast wars, and they're all going on each other's podcasts, like Tucker and Candace and Sean and Megan
Ian
Kelly
Carroll.
and Ian Carroll and all these characters, and then you'll get some other like Theo Vaughn and people who have been obviously programmed by the algorithm, but it's turned into this like he said she said type thing, and these people aren't even running. The only thing that they're campaigning for is more views and more clicks. And I wish people understood how the influencer marketing world works, especially in podcasting, because like they get paid so much money based on the CPMs, which is cost per thousand views on their YouTube videos and on X when they post. And like for every 1,000 views that the ad gets, they get they get more money, and they're racking in like millions and millions of views, and it's turned into page six, but for the conservative movement. And I wish there was someone who had, like Charlie, who had the influence and the relationships to be able to, call these people and say, knock it off. That's not why we're here. We're like, it really, in a lot of ways, and this is going to suck to hear for some people, but we're not necessarily here fighting in the conservative movement to be right. We're fighting to win for what's right. Winning is important because if we don't have power, if we don't, hold the House and hold the Senate and get these idiotic senators out and these, stupid congressmen out who aren't doing anything, which, I mean, if you look in the past 100 years, I think it was Woodrow Wilson. He did nothing, and he was like one of the best presidents ever. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But like, we have to like get Trump's agenda done because his agenda is awesome. But Republicans in the House are not doing anything, so we have a chance to put some new blood in there, which would be awesome. The Senate is like sitting on their thumbs and seeing how far up it can go because I don't know what they're doing. Like they are.
It's true.
They
It's
are.
true. It's true.
And then these judges are stopping Trump at every single turn, and then Democrats are using the media to get people fired up. Like if you want to blame anybody for the deportations, like blame the media and blame these Antifa groups that are getting these people riled up to try to run these ICE agents over with their car so they get shot, so they can have a story, so it's everywhere, so that there's mass hysteria.
So there's something you said there that reminds me. It's weird because maybe like 3-4 years ago, I would talk about how conservatives thought that we won by losing. And it's like the most bizarre thing in the world where we've and it stayed true. It's just changed forms. Like it's almost done a 180. So it used to be and we're seeing it simultaneously. So, like in the Senate, we have these idiots who think we cannot get the SAVE Act through. Don't get rid of the filibuster, or don't force a talking filibuster because we have the procedural rules, right? We have to. It was like they thought there was something virtuous about losing. The left only cares about winning, and the right cares so much about the image, the optics of being, well, we played by the rules. So I've given this example for years. I used to box. So in boxing, you fight by the rules called the Marquess of Queensberry. It means you can't hit a guy in the back of the head, no low blows, that kind of stuff. Well, if I got into a boxing match and maybe I'm winning, I'm jabbing this guy's head off, right? And in the third round, he pulls out a knife and he says, okay, we're in a knife fight now. I'm not going to keep boxing him because now it's a death match. It's no longer a boxing match. This is a death match. He's made his intentions clear. So that's what the Democrat Party has done over the last couple of years. They've told us on no uncertain terms. They openly campaign on basically repealing the Second Amendment. They say that they're going to stack the court. They say that they are going to get rid of the filibuster and shove everything through that they possibly can. The knife has been drawn. It wasn't drawn by us, but the knife is now out. So we're not in a boxing match anymore. We're in a death match. Unfortunately, nobody wants this to be the case. Nobody wants, like, if it was up to me, we would stay fighting by the Marquess of Queensberry, but the knife is out. And it used to be that conservatives would say, well, no, we can't fight to win, guys. We have to keep boxing. We said we were going to box by the Marquess of Queensberry. I'm just going to get stabbed to death. And actually, we win because we stayed on our principles. We stuck to what we were supposed to do. If we did what they did, then we're just as bad as them. And that used to piss me off so much. It would drive me crazy because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if we really make this analogous, not only am I in the ring with a guy who pulled a knife on me, not only is he going to stab me to death if I let him, but he's told me he's going to go stab my family to death too. As soon as I'm out of the way, he's going to go and destroy my family. That's what the left has said. If they get rid of us, then they're going to just take over the entire country. It's very obvious. And there were people who would say, no, I got to sit on my thumb. No, I got to sit here and do nothing because we win by losing. And that is the dumbest philosophy I have ever heard. But now it's like we also have it. It's like maybe horseshoe theory in a way. We also have it by the furthest right-wing, like extreme group, is that we win by losing. And they're like, well, we need to be accelerationists. We need to have the country go so far, so fast. It needs to get so bad that we have an authoritarian Hitler show up or some, king who's going to show up and is going to correct everything. We've now horseshoed our way to where the neocons in the Senate are saying we win by losing. And then we have other people who are saying, no, vote Democrat in general elections to prove the Republicans wrong because we win by losing. How did we get here? Like, what, what is going on?
It it honestly it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense because I was at a dinner recently with a fairly large musician in DC, and he said something really interesting, and he said that you cannot hate something into prosperity or success. And so everybody that has like self-loathing or suicidal thoughts about America, we shouldn't listen to them. The problem is that those people are going mega viral on the internet. Doomerism and literally everything goes on the internet, and it's going viral, and it is programming people. They are using MK Ultra tactics, uh, whether it's inadvertent or very like on purpose. It just is. So my understanding, and this might get technical, but this is important to understand. My understanding of the algorithm, and I'm pretty sure this is spot on, is it's all interest based. And so when you see something that you like, whether it's a dog video or a fail video or a video about the Jews or a video about Hitler or a video about Trump or whatever, it's going to continue to feed you those videos. And so let's say that somebody stumbles upon a video of analysis of Charlie Kirk getting shot, and they don't believe the narrative. The algorithm is just going to then show you more and more videos like that. And if you are kind of feeling down one day and you're like, I don't like America, and then the video that they show you is someone hating on Trump and hating on America and saying that we're not worth it and all this kind of stuff, then it's just going to show you more and more of those videos. And then 200 to 300 videos later, which probably could be in a night if you're doom scrolling, you're on your way to being programmed. And that's exactly what the mainstream media did, is they repeated over and over and over the same things over and over. And then you started to believe those lies, but it's getting accelerated on social media. And so these people, I firmly believe that these people who think that they're free thinkers and they can think for themselves are getting programmed by the algorithm. And I know from human nature that everybody can be programmed. Because I can. Because I'll see a video and it'll be compelling, and then I have the foresight to say, oh, like, is this true? And then I'll go look up some other things and other people that I trust. And if it turns out to be, not true, I'll ignore it. If it turns out to be true, I'll decide if it's important or not. And then if it's not important to my life, then I'll probably discard it, because I've got a family now. And so like this conservative fight is like extra important, but I also have other priorities as well. So like I want to, like my ultimate goal is to have a country that my daughter can be proud to grow up in, and my other kids, when we have them, to be proud to grow up in. And that's what I want. And I'm very proud of the country right now. I think that we are doing very well considering what we have been going through. And I don't think that the doomerism and the anti-American slop that you're seeing is part of our DNA. Because if you go back to the founders and you go back to what they stood for, and then you look at Abraham Lincoln, and then you look at World War I and World War II, like we weren't really a superpower until after World War II. Like people knew that we were great, but we weren't really like the top dog. And so us going into World War I and just dominating and ending that war, and then turning around again and doing it back to back, like that's incredible. So like that DNA is not very far away from us. But then if you go look at the founders, they were like, go watch the movie Young Washington, by the way, because this is like it sums it up well. But like these guys weren't soldiers. They just knew how to fight in a better way, and they had the spirit and the gusto because they were protecting their land that they crossed the ocean for. Like sometimes it took 2 or 3 months, and a lot of people died. Like think about that if you're flying a plane ever, like over to Europe or across the country. Like, dude, a lot of people died traveling that far.
Well,
Uh,
they didn't have a loser mindset. They didn't
no,
have this idea that everything is just too far gone. There's no voting our way out of this. There's no solution. There's no fixing it. I can't believe you guys, we'll talk about this on the other side of the break here, but they'll say, I can't believe that you think that this can be fixed. Like, brother, if that's your mindset, unfortunately, you're right. You're not going to be the one that fixes it, and no one will remember your name because you're a loser.
back to what I was saying about the founders. I mean, they really had everything to lose, but also nothing to lose because it was a brand new country. It wasn't even a country then; it was just a collection of colonies, and they were getting tired of getting beat up by the English, and they really didn't have a lot of resources, but they just decided that they were going to win, and then they figured out how to do it, and that's the American spirit, is that you decide that you can do something great, and then you can just go do it, because there's a really good quote. It's like everyone in America is pawns or paupers, but everyone has a chance to become a king, right? And that wasn't the rule back in the day because Europe was all like class warfare and kings and queens and dukes and barons and serfs, right? So you couldn't really like punch through to get to like another class, but now you can. Like you can create your own American aristocracy if you want to, right? You can create your own like you can create your own business and have employees and do this and that and the other thing. It's hard, but you can do it. And that's what the founders wanted. I mean, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness came from Thomas Paine, right? Where it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Because, like, private property ownership is like it's big. Because
Do you know, Gentry, why Jefferson didn't copy that? By the way, it's like a weird history thing. It's like a piece of
I don't
trivia.
know actually.
So Jefferson had the opportunity to just copy Paine and say life, liberty, property. The reason Jefferson did not, the reason he changed property to the pursuit of happiness is he didn't want it to establish slavery. He didn't want it to be misunderstood. He didn't want the Declaration of Independence to support slavery. So that's the only reason he changed it. Draft 1 of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson wrote the importation of slaves into the New World as one of the primary grievances against King George. That's like a fun history fact. People always talk about how like racist the United States was. Jefferson wanted to get rid of slavery in the Declaration of Independence, or like listed as one of the problems. We almost got it done too, but we needed a unanimous agreement basically by the colonies. And so just a couple of people who are, pro-slavery, they derailed the whole thing. But many of the founders wanted to do away with slavery from day one.
Mm,
And Jefferson knew that, and so he actually planned forward with that. Because people are like, why didn't he just copy Locke? Because so much, I mean, he copied 2/3 of it, was just verbatim copied
right,
from John Locke. And he
right.
switched it. He switched it to pursuit of happiness instead of property because he didn't want slavery. But anyway, so no, I completely 100% agree with what you're saying. And the algorithmic programming, you have to stop and think about it because it is MK Ultra style programming. And we're all susceptible to it, literally every single one of us, because it's constant confirmation bias. And so there's this like a subculture online, and I fully understand it. I appreciate it. I was glad when it first busted through this subculture of I don't trust the media. I don't trust anything that anybody says. I will question everything, except we stopped questioning everything. We stopped questioning the things that went with our narrative, right? We used to always talk about like MSNBC, ABC News, even Fox News. They all have an agenda. They all have like some sort of an angle that they're trying to push. They're not
I
just
have
being
an
objective.
agenda.
Everybody has an agenda. Anybody who's honest with you will tell you, I am a Christian conservative. My agenda is to spread the gospel and conservative political philosophy. Like that's my goal. I'm not here to be like a equal opportunity lender kind of a thing. Like I'm here to crush the left and advance the right. That's what I'm here for. I'll be honest about it. I still try and be like a decent person. I'm not going to try and lie to my audience, but everybody has an agenda. And we correctly understood like the mainstream media has an agenda. So we questioned them, but we stopped questioning the people who met our preconceived ideas. Like, so if Candace goes up there, and for transparency, when Charlie was killed, immediately I was very open, and I still am open to the idea that there's more to that story. That I think that there were probably people who knew in advance. The George Zimmer or whatever he is, who jumped up and started saying it was me, it was me. Something to that.
Yeah.
I don't need to know all of it. There's something to that. Okay, there's questions to be asked. There is a thread to pull here. But we stop. It's like, okay, if somebody comes out and says like, I don't believe the narrative, me either. Like, I think that's it. Like, I was primed and ready to say, yeah, I don't believe it either. What's going on? And because we have that thought in our head, we accept anything that agrees with it. And it's like, oh well, maybe it was Israel, and we're like, oh well, maybe it was, and then it's like, well, maybe it was the Egyptian plains, and you're like, well, okay, maybe it was Egypt, and then it's like, maybe it's guys in maroon shirts, and it's like, Gentry, you're in maroon, like that must be you. Like,
I didn't even think about it.
it just keeps going on, and it snowballs. And so I got a lot of heat the other day because I posted a video about this, where all I said in the video was, if you're going to question the official narrative, question the alternative narrative as well. Question both ends of this. If something agrees with you, don't just assume it's true. Also ask those critical questions. Like, does that even make sense? Like, would that even remotely make sense? And one of the bad things that I think we've seen, there's a lot of good when it came to the dethroning of the mainstream media. A lot of great things happened. I'm glad that we kind of busted out of that stranglehold. One of the bad things that happened, though, is, for its credit, the mainstream media had guardrails. They weren't always good at it, but there were guardrails. If Sean Hannity went on Fox News, and I'm not really a huge fan of Sean's, not that I hate the guy, it's not my style, it's not my cup of tea, but if Sean Hannity went on Fox News and said something that was just totally patently false, he would get fired. Like, if he got on there and did a whole series where he's like, guys, there's a bomb under New York City, and there's a whole group of like Mennonites that are doing it. Like, if he had this like whole grand conspiracy that he gets everybody worked up on, and then it's just verifiably false, he would get fired. Podcasting equipment, Gentry, has become too cheap. And so now we have anyone and everyone with no common sense, with no credentials, with no knowledge on the issue, with no history, and they just say crap. And people are like, that's the same stupid crap I thought. I love this guy. And now, it's like it blows up like crazy. And the guardrails are off. It's the Wild West. And that's what you were talking about earlier. Anyone can say anything. And that's a good thing. And it's also, it's kind of a bad thing.
I would also like, if we're going to talk about Charlie's murder for a little bit, I think that there are some very legitimate questions that can be asked. I think
Should be asked.
I think the pretrial hearing was eye-opening. Like, from what I saw, basically all of Candace's theories are out the window. And but I think that, the George Zimmer guy, or whatever his name is, like, what's up with him? That's weird. Why was he there? Who is he? What group chats was Tyler in? And who was in those group chats? And I'm totally open to the idea that it was Mossad, or, some sort of Russian intelligence, or Chinese, or even the CIA. Like, I'm totally open to like rogue elements of those things being in there to, groom Tyler. Did Lance Twiggs know about it prior? I think those are very intelligent, legitimate questions to ask. But I have a hard time with questioning, and it's more of the character assassination that we saw afterwards. And it just,
anyone who disagrees is in on it, kind of stuff.
Yes and no. I think that the indictment, the unfounded indictment of Erica and Turning Point, was
appalling,
kind of evil. Like, there are some statistics that say that, if you get murdered, it's probably someone that and so, like, that's legitimate. But then when there's no evidence to show that someone else was involved, from Turning Point or Erica Kirk or any of these people, like, you just kind of drop it, right? Because, like, a good investigator will pull on all the threads, but then when it comes out empty, you're like, okay, that was empty. Maybe that was a bad one to pull. Let's move on to the next one. Because at the very beginning, I'll be honest with you, I was on a phone call with some people, and like, what happened? And then they were sharing their theories on what happened, and I was like, could Israel have done this? And then, since then, I'm like, well, why would Israel do this? Robbie Starbuck had a great video on this, by the way. I loved it, because he laid out like how the Mossad actually does.
That's the thing to me, right? So less so than would they because Charlie, it's a fact. I mean, we've seen the messages, was having disputes with some pretty important Jewish donors, and he had texted about it, and that's a thing. That is true.
Which, by the way,
The
if I can interrupt here,
Yeah,
the message to the Jewish lobby: stop using the BLM playbook on everybody that doesn't agree with you 100%. Please stop doing that because it is so freaking annoying. Because literally, the BLM playbook was like, if you say all lives matter, you're a racist. And if you don't agree with us 100% on Jewish stuff for Israel, you're an anti-Semite. And that is not true. That's not how to win friends and influence people. That is not the way that you want to
it's how to
build.
beat people into submission.
Yeah,
It's how you beat
it's
people into submission. And let me go a step further. It's not just how you beat people into submission. It's why you made Nick Fuentes. That is why you created the
Ben Shapiro
environment.
created Nick Fuentes. So if
Yes.
we're gonna be mad about anybody from this,
Yes.
we should be mad about Ben because, according to the story, he canceled him at like 1,000
Yep.
followers,
Yep.
and they didn't know the monster that it created. He is. Um, I will give him his flowers. He is talented and he is funny, but he has the wrong prescription to a lot of his diagnoses.
He's an insane talent. Okay, so we're running out of time for our radio listeners. We'll continue this. We'll finish up this thought over on the podcast. But for the radio folks, thank you for listening. God bless. Keep me in your prayers. Keep Gentry in your prayers. Keep your country in your prayers. Y'all take care. Okay, so for the podcast people, we're just kind of rolling on. We're gonna keep going here because this is an important. This is arguably like the most important part of today's entire conversation. So like the radio people, they just don't get it. The podcast folks, y'all will understand. So when it comes to this like this broader question, talking about like the creation of the Nick Fuentes and the pro-Israel lobby. The pro-Israel lobby, Charlie was tired of them. Like assuming that these texts are true, and I believe that they've been corroborated by Andrew, by the Turning Point folks. You can only bludgeon a guy for so long until he says, "Get off my back." Until he says, "I'm done with you. Stop." Like I'm telling you to kick rocks. Go away. You can only silence legitimate questions, and there are legitimate questions about America's relationship with Israel. That's true. You can ask legitimate, intelligent questions. That's not to say there aren't honest answers, but you can ask legitimate questions about the USS Liberty. If somebody comes to you and they say, "Hey, what happened at the USS Liberty?" and you say, "Shut up, you anti-Semite." Okay, well, now you're creating the intrigue. Now they
Right,
have to
right.
ask more questions. Now they automatically think, well, that was a weird response. That was a very guilty response. And so, like what you said, they create Nick Fuentes. They create. Okay, so everybody thinks, like, this is going to get me in hot water. Everybody thinks that Hitler rose to power one day for no reason at all. Just for no discernible reason. And then one day they just voted for Adolf Hitler. You don't get 1930s and 1940s Germany without 1920s Germany. You don't get it without the Weimar Republic. You don't get it without the most. I mean, if you look back into why did Hitler rise to power, the most disgusting things were happening in Germany. The most absolutely perverse, demented, disgusting things. And that's not an endorsement of the response. It's an understanding of human nature. When you get that bad, you get Adolf Hitler. When you try and silence people who ask an honest, good faith question, you get people who stop asking honest, good faith questions, and now they already have a conclusion. And they say, "Oh, well, that was weird. That was weird, your response about the liberty," or "That was weird, your response about why we send so much money." And that's not to say that there's not a legitimate answer, but you create the monster. That's what happens. You create this monster.
1,000%. And they keep doing it to themselves. And for some reason, they put Mark Levin as their front guy. And listen, I've never listened to a Mark Levin show. So
I
I don't know
have.
if I don't know if he's actually good or not. Apparently,
He's
he's been a net positive for the
he
movement.
used to be really good. I'll defend Mark Levin for just a second. He used to be great, like on constitutional issues. Mark's a smart guy. Like he is a smart guy. But he's just like snapped lately. He's become ravenous, and it's so obvious, in my opinion. He's not an America first guy. He's totally an Israel first guy. His attacks on JD Vance are unfounded. They're completely ridiculous.
Well, because JD
He
Vance
used to
has
be
the
good though.
same JD Vance has the same views as most of America. I think most of America is wondering about the war in Iran. I I hate to root against our guys, like because I love our U.S. military, but I'm like,
What are we doing?
why are we negotiating with terrorists? Like, but then I also trust Trump, but then I don't like this, and so I'm in like a conundrum because I don't get it. But no, but JD Vance has like the mainstream mainline views as most people, And honestly, my views of Israel, like, I think they're an ally, and sometimes our interests align, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, it doesn't mean that we're anti-Semitic. It means that we're our own sovereign country that should be all about us.
Nope, you're just an
And
Islamo-fascist. Sorry, Gentry. Mark
yeah,
Levin told
no,
me
I'm
so.
sorry, dude. I will be.
Islamo-fascist.
I kick all the Muslims out, dude. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. I'm glad we're not on the radio anymore because
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
And, okay, so you said something earlier a second ago about like Nick. So Nick, you were giving him flowers. I think it's appropriate to do so. I think everybody can acknowledge he has comedic genius in his blood. Like that's something you either have or you don't. You
Hmm.
can't like try and go get that. You either have it or you don't. Nick has comedic genius. He is probably like 145 IQ. I would probably get. I think he's wicked intelligent. But sometimes you're so high IQ that you're actually stupid. That's like that is a thing. And so that's, you get into some slippery territory there. Um, Nick is hilarious, but he's something that it's like when you watch, I don't know, like Batman or something, and you hear the Joker's origin story, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. I don't agree with blowing up Gotham, but I understand why you got so screwed up. Like I understand how you came to these, like what creates this kind of a thing. And by the way, there have been positive impacts of the Groypers. Like they have pushed the conservative movement in some ways into a more consistently conservative position. It's just again, it's a pendulum thing. Like they go way too far on stuff. Like saying that we should vote for Democrats instead of JD Vance. Like, no,
Yeah.
you lost me, dude. You lost me.
That proves the horseshoe window, and you did actually bring up something that was good. Well, I'm not sure if it's the Groypers or if we can say that, but I think that the movement has progressed so much, and people have such a short memory that they don't appreciate the time that we're in, because 8 years ago we had Mike Pence, right? And he like was a rhino, neocon, etc. Now we have JD Vance, who is going on Joe Rogan talking about the Nephilim,
Yeah.
talking
We,
about
we, we are living in times that we used to
and
pray for, and
yes,
we're crying about it.
and the Overton window has shifted
Yes.
so much,
Yeah.
and no one cares, and no one appreciates it, and they don't understand what is happening.
Well, it's
Like
in part because
they
you
don't.
have Johnny come latelys, man. It's people who weren't even paying attention back in 2020. They weren't 8 years. You talk about 8 years ago. They didn't know what was going on 8 years ago because they still had their head in the sand 8 years ago. Like they have no appreciation. And it's not even like to be insulting toward the people who just recently woke up on these things. But history matters, context matters, the direction we are going matters. If you could go back in time to 2015 and tell somebody, hey, by the way, let me describe the positions of the vice president of the United States, they'd be like, no, that's not true, dude.
Yeah,
Like
no,
that's not true.
he'll
We,
never get elected.
we were begging like once upon a time we were begging for like Sarah Palin, and it's like dude, look at the
Mitt
not
Romney, dude.
Mitt freaking Romney.
Yeah.
We were oh boy, God, I hope we get
We
Mitt
would have been
Romney. Like
stoked with Mitt, and now we're
and
like, yeah, that guy sucks.
yeah, times have changed, and they've changed in our favor tremendously, which is good. And that's why I always try and tell people, like, no blackpilling. That's like a rule that I have is no blackpilling. And also the other thing is, it's like anybody who tells you that the answer to our problems is to um, disengage. Withdrawal is never the answer. Withdrawal from the process is literally never the correct answer. If we pack up and we go home, you have handed your children to the left. You have sold your children to the left for convenience, for I don't know what. You have said, all right, I'm just going to have my children and do unto them what you wish. That's what you're saying. If you say I'm going to pack up and I'm going to stop being involved, I'm going to stop voting, I'm going to stop like paying attention to Republican primaries or trying to win. All right, dude, have fun losing then. I don't know what to tell
I
you.
I have the hottest take, and this is a indictment on the conservative movement in a large way, but I don't think you can actually be a true conservative until you are a parent, a father, a mother, because you're just fighting for yourself, and maybe if you're on social media, you're just fighting for clicks, but it gives a deeper meaning to this fight when you actually do have kids. My daughter is 8 months old. I can actually hear her in the background. I think she just woke up from a nap, and she is the the reason why the reason why I fight, I'm pretty sure, Victor, like you being a girl dad too, it's like you want to have them grow up in a country that they'd be proud of with the American spirit and that ethos. And that's that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why I'm still in it. Dude, after Charlie died, it was so hard because everyone was hopping on these bandwagons and like they were, against Trump and this and that and the other thing. And I'm like, how is it more unpopular to support Trump now than it was in 2016? It's insane. But then you look into like your kid's eyes, your daughter's eyes, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I have to keep fighting. You have to do this.
Withdrawal's not an option. It's just not. I will say, to the point of like, Trump has made me mad, and I've been a loyal Trump guy through it all. I was a 2015 Trump guy. I've busted butt for Trump over the years. Support him. I pray for him. I want him to do well. He did invite a lot of the buck does stop with him in some ways, where he invited a lot of heat to himself with the Iran war, because there was a huge segment of the base. Charlie told this to him many times. Charlie talked about this many times. The Iran war was not going to be popular. It wasn't going to work out well. He invited legitimate criticism with the Iran war, but the Epstein stuff. I mean, for me, I've defended Trump through it all. I've defended him through all of the tapes that came out and the locker room talk and all of the the allegations from the 1980s about his renting to black people. Like I've defended Trump because I believed that I could defend him, because I won't defend him if I think it's indefensible. The stuff with the Epstein thing, though, that's where I got off the bus. And I still pray for him. I still want him to do well. I support him in all of his policy that aligns with me. But some of the stuff, I do think it is true to say, Trump has invited, in a way that he didn't in 2016, Trump has invited, it's kind of been like unforced blunders to me, where like there was a tweet that he put out of Truth Social where he said, effectively, if we're not going to move on from the Epstein hoax, he said, then we're stupid and weak and he doesn't want our support. I read that and I was like, well, dude, I'm not moving on from the Epstein stuff. And so not to like take stuff personally from the president, but if you're going to call me stupid and say you don't want my support, you do own when a certain segment of your base says, okay, well, I accept your terms. I'm out of here. That doesn't mean that they should be stupid about it. Like the Republican Party is still the vessel toward success, and Trump, in a way, is going to be the canary in the coal mine for all of us. If Trump goes down, we're kind of all cooked. Like we will kind of share his fate in a way. So I don't think we should just be burying the guy. But he did. I will say, it's my opinion, he did invite legitimate criticism that he didn't do in 2016.
Yes, I mean, you kind of have to agree with that. I feel like he had an incredible opportunity to wrap up the Iran war after he killed the Ayatollah, because like the narrative, at least that I was trying to spin, was like he's going dictator hunting and he's going to go to Cuba next and just snatch that guy, and that would have been sick. And now we're like months later, and I still want to believe, and I still think that he can turn this around because he's got 2 more years left.
I want to trust the plan.
And I want to trust the plan. 2025 was a fantastic year up until the Epstein files, and then Charlie's
even post Charlie, Trump is a different guy. I think Charlie was a very important voice in his year. I think we didn't understand or appreciate. Charlie was so good at everything, but it was the behind the scenes stuff that we didn't see that like was his superpower. He was a freaking animal at that. He was such an important voice to the administration. He was such an important voice to the entire coalition, to the Tuckers, to all of the, and I like Tucker. I still listen to Tucker's stuff. I think he's nuts on some of his theology. I would not get theology from Tucker. He has some weird guests from time to time. Like I don't agree with everything he does, but Charlie had a skill at keeping the Tuckers and the Levins in line. And that's not an easy thing to do. If you can get Tucker and Mark Levin in the same room and get them to like push the ball in the same direction, you're a masterclass. And Charlie was a masterclass at that. And I will say also, this is like a derailing, a total tangent here. I don't think Trump handled Charlie's assassination well at all. I do not think he handled that appropriately in the slightest. It was like a blip on the radar. he should have gone to war. Not necessarily like in a physical sense, but like a literal sense. But dude, that was Charlie, man. Like they killed our best guy, and he went and talked about a ballroom. Like when they asked that question, like how are you doing? It was a very humanizing question actually that the left had asked Trump on like the South Lawn, and they're like, Trump, how are you doing in the wake of, it was like the next day or something, Charlie being assassinated, and Trump's like, the economy's great, and I'm building a ballroom, and like I don't know, maybe people handle grief differently. I don't know, man. We had a chance to do an Iron Fist thing and throw like Hassan Piker in jail. Like we had an opportunity to. I don't know. I feel like that wasn't handled right. But
I, I would, I'd probably have to agree with you on that one. Um, I, I have always had the opinion that we're never going to agree with our leaders 100%. And if you do agree with them 100%,
it's a
you
problem.
got to really be introspective on why that is. I will say though that I tried to find stuff that I disagree with Charlie. Pretty hard to do. Very, very, very hard to do. But like my pastors, I don't even agree with them 100%. And I'm like, yeah. So it's just,
Yep. Well, if you're looking, okay, so there's an old quote. I don't think it's How to Win Friends and Influence People, though Carnegie certainly understood this. An old quote. I don't know who to attribute it to, but if you are a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so when we're looking for a problem, Gentry, if I sat down and I looked for a problem in you, I'd find it. And if you sat down and you looked for a problem in me, you'd find it. You'd find a lot of them. You'd find plenty. We can do that, and it's become like it's almost become a competition. So the left, they had like the oppression Olympics. Like somebody would say, well, I'm black, and so I'm oppressed. And then somebody would be like, well, actually, I'm black, and I cut my genitals off, so I'm extra oppressed. And then it's like, they would have this hierarchy, like a totem pole, and it was like a currency to them almost, who could be the most oppressed or whatever. On the right, we kind of like created the fringes of the right. We created this thing of like, oh, well, I'm actually so conservative. Like I'm so far to the right that I don't even like Trump. And I also don't even like this person. And like I find issues with this guy or with this guy. I see it in the pro-life space all the time. Like I'm so pro-life that actually I don't like anybody. And it's like, well, congratulations, idiot. Like that means you have no allies. Good luck winning a war with no, and it's like a purity test thing. Everybody's got to out purity test somebody else.
you have to make friends in this business. You have to do it. And if you don't do it, people just aren't going to like you. And
And you won't get anything done.
you have to do favors. You have to ask for favors. You have to, like, you have to, buy dinners and network and do all this stuff. And, you've got to. And going back to what I said earlier, people want to be right so much on the right. Like right wing politics, conservative politics, we want to have correct opinions. And correct opinions are very important, but dude, winning for the right reasons is so important. It's arguably the most important. Otherwise, we're going to be arguing these issues from jail.
Yeah, or dead from the
Or
from the grave.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's not good,
it's
man.
it's
It's
not
not
good.
good, but it can be better. That's the thing. I don't want to end this on like a dooming note. But in order to get better, like if you're sick, you got to get a diagnosis. You got to understand you have an issue. If we as a movement don't have a little cold water in the face and realize that we have like half of our best people are spending 90% of their time attacking other people who are on the right. Like if we don't acknowledge that issue and refocus, we're cooked. So we have to have these conversations. They're very important. Maybe I'll have somebody. Maybe I'll follow this show up with somebody who won't have nearly as uh, similar an opinion to me on some of this stuff. Maybe I'll get one of the black pillars and I'll have them on
Maybe.
and we can talk about it because it's just I don't know.
Well, if you do have a black pillar on here, here's the message to them. Like, understand what's actually important, because being right on the internet, like having like posting the truth, quote unquote, on the internet so much, and attacking our side and this and that, it's. I feel like it's a blocker in our ways to actually getting what we want done, because what we want done is less taxes, lower government. We want uh, cost of living to be down. We want affordable housing. We want just like mainstream Republican ideals. And posting all day long about how Charlie Kirk died without thinking about how Charlie Kirk lived is a sad existence.
Yeah, that's a perfect note. We're just gonna leave it there. That's the perfect way for us to end it. Gentry, where do people find you, man?
At Gentry Gevers on Instagram, at Gentry W Gevers on X, and then you can follow me on Facebook too. Send me a DM, send me an email. I love it all.
All righty, man. Appreciate you, brother. Take care.
Thanks, man.